When she said, "I am not fit for any man," the room went silent, but when she added, "I can love your children," the single father felt his world tilt in a way he never expected. This is not a love story the way you think it is, it's a kindness story that changes lives. If stories of quiet sacrifice and real humanity touch your heart, like this video and subscribe to True Kindness Tales. Right now, your support helps these stories reach more souls. Ethan Carter had learned to measure time in small survivals rather than big dreams, ever since his wife passed away 3 winters ago, leaving him with 2 children and a silence that never quite left the house. Mornings were rushed with lunches half made and shoes half found, evenings were filled with homework battles and whispered prayers he wasn't sure anyone heard, and nights were the hardest, when the house creaked and memories spoke louder than his thoughts. He wasn't looking for love when he met Mara. He was looking for a caregiver, someone gentle enough to help with the children while he worked longer shifts at the warehouse to keep the lights on. Mara arrived on a gray afternoon, wearing a plain coat, her hair pulled back neatly, her eyes steady but guarded. She didn't try to impress him with rehearsed smiles or polished words. Instead, she knelt to Liam's level, listened patiently to Sophie's endless questions, and treated the cluttered home as if it were already hers to protect. Over the following weeks, Ethan noticed how the children laughed more easily, how Sophie began leaving drawings on the fridge again, how Liam slept through the night for the first time in months. There was something about Mara's presence, quiet, grounding, unassuming, that softened the sharp edges of their grief. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Ethan found himself asking questions he hadn't planned to ask, about her past, her family, her dreams. Mara listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, her words were careful, like stones placed gently across a stream. Finally, after a long pause, she said there were things about her life that made her unsuitable for romantic expectations, that she carried losses and scars she didn't believe anyone deserved to inherit. Ethan, tired of loneliness and moved by her devotion to his children, surprised himself by asking if she had ever considered something more, marriage, perhaps, or at least the idea of building a future together. Mara didn't recoil, but her gaze dropped, her hands folded tightly in her lap, as if she were holding herself together. That was when she said the words that would echo in Ethan's heart for years to come, "I am not fit for any man." The sentence landed heavy, final, like a door gently but firmly closed. Ethan opened his mouth to reassure her, to argue, to tell her that no one was perfect and that broken didn't mean unworthy, but before he could speak, she lifted her eyes again, and her voice softened. "But I can love your children." Ethan went quiet, not because he was offended, but because he realized the depth of what she was offering. Not romance, not ownership, but devotion, patience, and a love that asked for nothing in return. In that moment, Ethan understood that Mara wasn't rejecting him, she was protecting something sacred, his children, and perhaps herself too. And as he sat there in the dim kitchen light, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the steady breathing of his sleeping kids down the hall, he felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. Gratitude deeper than desire, respect stronger than longing, and the first fragile thread of hope that kindness alone might be enough to heal what love had broken. Life continued in its quiet rhythm, but something had shifted beneath the surface, like ice cracking slowly on a frozen lake. Ethan never pressured Mara again, and she never withdrew the care she gave so freely. She showed up every day before sunrise, packed lunches with little notes tucked inside, braided Sophie's hair with careful hands, and listened to Liam talk about his fears as if they were the most important things in the world. Neighbors began to notice how the children smiled more, how laughter returned to the house that once felt permanently muted. Mara never called herself their mother, never overstepped, but she stood in the background during school events, clapped the loudest at spelling bees, and stayed up late sewing a costume when Sophie decided she wanted to be a star instead of a princess. Ethan watched all of this with a heart that grew heavier and lighter at the same time, heavy with the knowledge that this woman was giving his children what he alone could not, and light with the relief of knowing they were finally safe in someone's care. One night, Liam asked a question that caught Ethan off guard. "Is Mara going to leave like Mom did?" Ethan froze, the old pain flaring, but before he could answer, Mara knelt beside Liam and said gently, "I can't promise forever the way adults sometimes do, but I can promise to love you today, and tomorrow, and for as long as I am here." The words were simple, but they carried a truth so steady that even Ethan felt his breath slow. Over time, Ethan began to learn pieces of Mara's past, not through confession, but through small revelations. He learned she had lost a child of her own many years ago, that the grief had carved a hollow in her heart that never fully healed. Loving another man, she believed, meant risking a pain she might not survive again. Loving children, however, felt different. It was an act of giving without ownership, of nurturing without expectation. When Ethan finally understood this, something inside him softened into acceptance. He stopped seeing her words as rejection and started seeing them as courage. One winter evening, when Ethan came home late to find Mara sitting on the floor helping Liam with a puzzle while Sophie read aloud beside them, he felt a surge of emotion that nearly brought him to his knees. This was family, not defined by vows or labels, but by presence and care. He realized then that love didn't always arrive wrapped in romance. Sometimes it came quietly, in the form of someone choosing to stay, day after day, without asking to be chosen back. And so Ethan made a decision of his own. He would honor Mara's boundaries, protect her heart as she protected his children, and allow whatever this was to exist without trying to reshape it into something more comfortable for himself. In doing so, he discovered a strange peace, one born not from possession, but from trust. The children thrived, Mara seemed lighter, and Ethan learned that healing doesn't always look like replacing what was lost. It can also look like building something entirely new from kindness alone. Years passed quietly, marked by growth charts on doorframes, birthday candles, and shared dinners where laughter felt natural again. Mara remained a constant, though never demanding permanence, and Ethan remained grateful beyond words. When Sophie graduated and Liam learned to drive, they both credited Mara as fiercely as they did their father, and she accepted their gratitude with gentle smiles and misty eyes. Then came a day when Mara fell ill, suddenly and seriously, and Ethan found himself sitting by her hospital bed, holding the same hands that had wiped tears and packed lunches for nearly a decade. In the sterile quiet of the room, Mara looked smaller, vulnerable in a way Ethan had never seen before. She apologized for not giving him the kind of love the world expected, for holding herself back, for believing she wasn't fit for anyone. Ethan finally spoke the words he had carried for years, his voice steady despite the tears. He told her that she had given him exactly the love his family needed, that her kindness had rebuilt a home from ashes, that his children had grown into compassionate adults because someone once chose to love them without condition. He told her that if being fit meant romance and promises, then maybe she was right, but if it meant showing up, staying, and loving when it was hardest, then she was the strongest person he had ever known. Mara cried quietly, the kind of tears that cleanse rather than wound. She recovered slowly, and life went on, altered but intact. When people asked Ethan why he never remarried, he simply said he already had everything he needed. And when the children, now grown, told the story of their childhood, they didn't talk about tragedy or loss. They talked about a woman who loved them when she didn't have to, and a father who learned that real love doesn't always ask to be named. This story isn't about sacrifice alone. It's about how kindness can be braver than romance, how loving children can heal adults, and how silence, sometimes, is not emptiness but understanding. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness can change lives, please like this video and subscribe to True Kindness Tales. Your support keeps these true kindness stories alive and shared with the world.